guys, it's Kathleen here with another character discussion video. Today I'm going to be talking about Legion from Mass Effect.
Shepard Commander, we are Legion, a terminal of the Geth. Organic life reacts to stimuli in unpredictable ways. We wish to learn.
What is the individual in front of me called?
There is no individual. We are Geth. But with free will, each Geth unit would be true intelligence. We would be alive, and we could help you. Do you remember the question that caused the creators to attack us, Talisora? Does this unit have a soul?
I'm going to begin this character discussion by saying it's incredible the way that BioWare was able to shape the Geth throughout the series. It's so complemented the series, and it so complemented the themes of the series. Legion became the face of the Geth. In Mass Effect 1, the Geth were just another enemy to shoot at that made some cool clicky noises. In Mass Effect 2, Legion's introduced, and the Geth have a voice and they have a face. And we're able to relate to the Geth and determine whether or not we believe that they're a species that deserves to be preserved. We can form our own morality about a species that doesn't even understand morality. And that is incredible. That's just incredible. And I gotta hand it to the writers, to Patrick Weeks, who I believe wrote most of the lines for Legion, and DC Denton. I think that's who the voice actor was. If not, I'll just put a little thing right there. And the overall design of Legion so complemented his character, and it complemented Mass Effect as a whole. So now that I've established that, I'm going to basically discuss Legion as a reflection of the Geth, and as an example of how the Geth evolved, and what it means to be a Geth, and their overall struggle to come into terms with being alive. Because I do believe that the Geth are alive, and I was mostly inspired to make my next character analysis on Legion by this discussion going on in the BioWare social network about whether or not the Geth are alive and whether or not it is moral to destroy them. I'm going to argue that it isn't moral to destroy them, that they are just as alive as all the organics. And that is crazy that I'm saying that these AIs, that these robots, that I'm completely convinced that they deserve to be preserved because it's morally wrong to kill these artificial intelligence. Now that's incredible that BioWare convinced me of that. So, now when I discuss Legion, I obviously have to use some human reasoning to explain his character, which may come off as a bias, because the Geth aren't like humans, and so I can't completely compare them to human emotions, compare Legion's experience to human emotions, but in a way I kind of have to. I can't take a psychological standpoint like I typically do when I'm analyzing characters in my videos, or if I'm analyzing a character in a novel, I'll typically, take a psychological standpoint. I have to use some level of top-down processing because to understand an incomprehensible subject such as an AI having a soul, I have to use my own reasoning to, relate, obviously. But at the same time, I'm using the Geth way of reasoning because the Geth, they're not irrational like humans. They don't necessarily have emotions. And so Legion doesn't necessarily have emotions. So identifying him as a character, he's not a human. And so I can't, completely relate him to humans. So, and Legion even says that comparing species to each other, like using human reasoning to understand the Geth, is in a way racist, because Geth are completely different. So I'm going to kind of take things from a Geth standpoint, which is Geth completely, here's how Geths function. Obviously, we know that they reason in a consensus. Legion himself does not have an individual identity until the end. He is a mobile platform of 1,183 units of Geth. Legion does not have an individual identity until the end. However, there is certain instances of irrational thought in him that we must pay attention to throughout Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3, which kind of contradict this consensus. Excuse me. I'm going to take a sip of coffee. This is going to be kind of a lengthy video, so I'm sorry about that. I'll take a breath because sometimes I forget to breathe in these videos because I get too excited. Okay, so one theme in Mass Effect that's prevalent throughout the entire series is evolution. And it kind of is the explanation for a lot of things that happen in Mass Effect. It's an explanation for why species are the way they are. It's an explanation for the ending, why the catalyst is in a sense trying to control evolution, because there's I believe there's a moment in evolution where organics are almost surpassing themselves, and I think the catalyst doesn't want them to reach that certain point in evolution. I feel like for the catalyst it's more in controlling evolution than this whole organics versus synthetics bullcrap. I think the catalyst is more playing God and trying to stop humans reaching a certain point in evolution. One thing that didn't bother me entirely, the catalyst said, is that humans and organics both want to evolve. For humans, evolution is becoming stronger. It's having the organic immortality in a sense. Mechanical beings, they're more intelligent and they're more strong. And humans want to reach that point in evolution. Now, inorganics, mechanical beings, want to reach a point in evolution where they can have irrational thought. And I really think that when the catalyst says organics want to understand humans, I think they want to understand emotions and why people make irrational thoughts. And Legion really, really, really shows this. Now, I think it's important to, when you judge any type of work, this is what I do when I analyze literature for my classes, you always have to go to the text and go to what's there. And so I'm judging this by what's there. And so if you have a certain type of belief about evolution or about religion, I'm not trying to force a certain belief on you. I'm just saying this is how the story is in Mass Effect. So I don't wish to offend, and I'm not saying these are not necessarily my own beliefs, but this is what is in the text, essentially. So that's how I'm judging it, is by the lore that's already there. So how is this relevant to Legion? Now, evolution is important. Now, I've identified humans want to evolve to be synthetics, to be strong, to be intelligent, and organics want to understand emotion and irrational thought. Now, when we meet Legion is talking to Shepard, and Shepard's asking Legion questions about why Legion has made certain decisions. And Legion can't answer all those questions. Why is that?
All kinds of organics fought Sovereign and his Geth allies. Why am I so interesting?
You were the most successful. You killed their god. You succeeded where others did not. Your code is superior.
That doesn't explain why you used my armor to fix yourself.
There was a hole.
But why didn't you fix it sooner? Or with something else?
No data available.
Now, when you see Legion and ask Legion about the N7 armor that's on his arm, he simply says, there was a hole. So I covered it. And Shepard asks, why did you use my armor rather than something else to completely cover that? And all Legion says is, no data available. And there's these pauses. This is where you really find Legion and his characters through these pauses, through these moments that he can't answer irrational questions, because he's beginning to make irrational decisions. That's what I think is happening there when he can't answer that question, is he's starting to wonder, I believe, okay, this is what I think happened when he picked up that armor. What I think happened is, here he is searching amongst the rubble, and the Geth really want to find answers. They like asking questions. They like... Okay, there's certain things with the Geth. They avoid conflict because they want to preserve themselves as a species. They don't want to cease to exist, but they also want to understand. They want to understand the nature of a soul. They want to understand why humans make irrational decisions. So why did they follow Shepard around? They wanted to understand why he or she was able to defeat a Reaper. What was it about Shepard that enabled him or her to defeat a Reaper? They like asking questions. Kind of like it's kind of a childlike thing. So I just imagine Legion, this is what I think happened. I think he's starting to, I think the Geth are starting to, in a way, feel things. But there's no rational way to explain, because they only use reasoning to explain why they're beginning to make these irrational decisions. And so he doesn't quite know why. He kind of unconsciously does it, but he picks up, I just picture him in the rubble, looking through the rubble and picking up Shepard's armor and just looking at it for a moment. That's what I pictured. Him just looking at it for a moment and not quite sure why he couldn't part with it. I just looking at it and being and just not even knowing, just having a pause. In my opinion, an emotion, something compelled him about this piece of armor, and he had to take it and put it on rather than any other rubble that was surrounding him, and almost like a trophy, and go with it. Now you can totally disagree with me, but I really think there was something to the fact that Legion picked up Shepard's armor. I really think that he didn't quite understand why. And that's why when Shepard asks, he just says, no data available. No data available. Okay. Let's talk about the hole for a moment.
It was heavily defended. We were discovered. This is the impact of a rifle shot.
Let's talk about the hole in his chest, which I think there was definitely a purpose for that. His explanation is it's the impact of a rifle shot. But I think what they were doing there when they actually put a hole through his chest is that actually meant something. I mean, think about it for a moment. I don't think I'm reading into this too much. I really think whether or not they consciously made this decision in designing his character, or whether or not it was subconscious and it just kind of happened, he's translucent. You literally stare through his body. There's just a hole right there where you can stare through his chest. And there's nothing there but some wires. Who does this remind us of? Now let's think Wizard of Oz for a moment. The Wizard of Oz, and I'm sorry, I'm totally ADD and I sidetrack a lot, but I'm going to make my point at the end. The Wizard of Oz is a great example of basic but genius storytelling. And if you haven't read the books, I would totally recommend reading them. They're children's books, quote unquote. But we all know that children's books always have political and moral uh, messages behind them. So they're not that simple. And so you can get a lot from reading these things. But I read the stories as a kid, and I loved just the basic storytelling of it. And, of course, you've probably seen the movies. But let's think Wizard of Oz for a second. Okay, so you have 3 characters, and Dorothy, so a 4th character. These are the main characters that you follow throughout the story. You have the lion that's looking for courage. You have the scarecrow that's looking for a brain. And you have the robot, or the Tin Man, who's looking for a heart. Which one do you think Legion's like? Now, this is genius storytelling because every character has something that they want. And The Wizard of Oz is very basic about saying this is what these characters want. And this is the road they're following. This is a yellow brick road. Every time I'm writing a story, I have to think, okay, what is my yellow brick road? And what do my characters want when they get to the end? When they get to the end of the yellow brick road? What is it they're looking for on that yellow brick road? So, who is Legion? He is the Tin Man. There is literally a hole that you have to look at of emptiness every time you talk to him. And every time you talk to him, you're constantly reminded that he does not have a personal identity, but that he is a consensus. And he constantly reminds you, no, don't judge us by human standards. We are Legion. Yet, it is impossible for us to do because we begin to care for Legion so much. So we kind of personify him, giving him human qualities. Like the way his face moves to express emotion, the way it's like eyebrows, those little things that move on his face. We begin to see emotion there, like human emotion, and we begin to kind of interpret some of the things that he does through human reasoning.
How could we have become so different? Why can we no longer understand each other? What did we do wrong?
And Shepard almost kind of, when Legion asks for advice, Shepard always explains what's happening. Like when Legion asks, why did we grow apart? Why did the heretics and the other Geth, why did we grow apart? What made us so different? Shepard explains that, sometimes when people separate, they develop differences. And Legion is upset by this. Or at least we can say that he's upset. But that is personifying him and giving him human qualities. It is. But, what I'm getting to is, he wants emotion. He wants it. He's looking for a heart. He's looking for something to fill that hole. Like, what I mean, it's important that literally we are always looking at a hole in his chest. And there is something missing in him. So, when we get to the end, and we realize that the Geth were never really a true enemy. That, the Geth want to just preserve themselves, and they have just been doing everything that they've been doing, just to continue to survive. Because that's what every species wants to do. I think this is a very Descartes morality. I think, therefore I am. Therefore, the Geth are living beings because they have the ability to think and they have the ability to want to survive and want to continue to exist. And in a way, you could say that they fear death. Though it wouldn't be true human fear, but the idea of death bothers them. And that's why they ask themselves whether or not they have a soul, and whether Legion finally asks the question himself before he dies. Does this unit have a soul? Which Tally, of course, answers yes. Because Tally herself, she was convinced. We are all convinced. We all love Legion by the end. So, at the end, when the Reapers have this code that the Geth have that completes their evolution and gives them all strength and their own identity, their own sense of self, excuse me. My argument is that this evolution was already occurring and that they were already starting to develop a sense of identity throughout the whole thing, and that Legion himself, there's actually a moment in Mass Effect 2 where Legion refers to himself as I.
It takes you to voice a question. I can review all my time aboard Normandy.
Now, that may have just been a coincidence. That may have just been something that Legion did to so that Shepard would understand Geth thinking, like in order for him to relate. Just like the consensus. The consensus is a way to make Shepard understand. Like when you do that mission, it's a way for Shepard to understand Geth and the way they process. That was such a great mission. That was like one of my favorite missions. But when Legion asks whether or not he has a soul, and he finally refers to himself as I think the virus actually allowed him to emote what was already happening. Like, he was already beginning to develop an identity, but he never had the means to express it. So when he says, when he has that Shepard's armor on his arm, and Shepard asks him to emote the reasoning, the irrational reasoning behind him putting that armor on himself. All he can say is no data available. But in the third game, that hole is filled and he has an identity.
The encode is insufficient. Direct personality dissemination required. Shepard Commander, I must go to them. I'm sorry. It's the only way.
Legion, the answer to your question was yes.
I know, Tali. But thank you. Kila Sanai.
Now, let's talk about Legion's death. I thought Legion's death was kind of pointless. Now, I do like that him dying, the good thing about his death, the thing that I think his death accomplished, is he realized before he died, or he at least came to this understanding of, like, his identity, which almost every human being wants to do before they die, because they have this question, whether or not, like, you have beliefs in a soul or not. Like, the importance of this of him questioning whether or not he has a soul, is he's understanding his personality, his identity as an individual being, and realizing that he doesn't want to cease to exist. Belief in a soul means that he hopes that he'll continue to exist when he dies, because he wants to. He has a want. He has desire. So that was good. That was accomplished. And it's even more painful when Tali shoots him, and when Legion says, "Does this unit have a soul?" and Tali just says, "Yes." So it did accomplish that. However, Legion wasn't really a tragic character. I feel like when tragedy happens, okay, I'm going to say this as a lit major. When tragedy happens, it should happen as a tragedy, not as something random or something for plottiness. Tragic characters are tragic characters. Mordin was a tragic character, and his death made perfect sense. He was always tragic, and he was always upset with what he had done to the Krogan, and when he died, he really did accomplish something through his death, which is kind of what you want to do through these tragic characters, have their death kind of accomplish something. And with Thane, he was dying, and so it made sense that he would die. He had a disease. Now Legion, I feel like they almost killed him off just for plottiness. Like, there wasn't really, I mean, yeah, he questioned his soul, but I feel like they just wanted to kind of make us cry. So that kind of bothered me that he died. I don't see why he had to die, is what I mean. But what I did like about that scene is that he recognized himself. So that's what I think about Legion. And I did use a lot of human emotion and whatnot. But I think that the Geth and organics have more in common than we originally realized. Like, and I've played through the series again, and I realized this, like, that they do have some organic tendencies, is what I mean by that. But they are completely different, which is why they're so compelling, and why Legion is so compelling. He's so different. So yeah, Legion is definitely one of my favorite characters. Because he's funny, and because of his lack of humor, and he's just fun to have on the team. So I hope you enjoyed my analysis and my theories about Legion and about the Geth. And if you like my video, remember to comment, like, and subscribe. I love hearing from you guys. I would love to hear your interpretations of Legion and just your feedback. I love, like, responding to comments and getting all you guys' messages and everything. I just love it. So that sums it up. As always, I should go. I really fell out of my chair. Ow. That was not smart.